Welcome to this special time travel edition of Last Night. I'm Enghill, speaking to you from the Nexus, the birthpoint of space-time itself, where I'm joined by renowned time traveler, Sally John-Smythe. We're here to review last night's episodes of Lost Girl, Being Human, and Continuum.
Every episode last night had some aspect of time displacement or alternate realities. It can be confusing at first to watch, but if done right, it can be a very effective storytelling device.
I would think the biggest headache in telling a time travel story would be avoiding paradoxes.
Actually, the best time travel shows and movies seem to ignore the possibility of paradox as much as possible. In Star Trek, changes made in the past never affect the crew itself, so they can always go back and put things right. In Quantum Leap, the leapers always retain knowledge of the true past, no matter what they change. And of course, despite all of Doc Brown's warnings, Marty McFly never returns to the reality he knew in the first Back to the Future, though it doesn't seem to bother him.
The season finale of Continuum seems to suggest they have a Terminator-style time paradox, where trying to change the past creates the future they already knew.
That's where the name Continuum comes from, no doubt. Some people call it a closed time loop. Others know it more colloquially as the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey principle.
I'd say things have definitely become wibbly-wobbly for Kira and Alec. As it turns out, his future self is the reason she's back there. I'd always suspected he had a hand in sending her back, but I thought he was doing it so she could follow the terrorists. Now we know he was behind the whole terrorist time travel plot in the first place.
There's obviously larger game afoot. Future Alec can't have been trying to alter history since sending them all back in time hasn't changed anything, yet. But as the credits began to roll, you could tell young Alec was relaying future Alec's plan to Kara, which presumably is a better plan than facilitating the actions of murderers.
I certainly hope so. The alternative is that somewhere along the way Alec became a terrorist just like his stepbrother. Let's talk about Being Human. This show doesn't have any time travel, but it definitely has a lot of flashbacks, particularly with the character Aiden.
Aiden seems to spend more time on screen in the past than he does in the present, even when they give him something to do in the present.
Oh, but seeing that full centuries-long personal history of his, it's like reading a romance series that has 36 novels in it.
36 already? That's as many episodes as the UK series had in its entire run.
Which series do you think is better, the UK or the US?
Let's not talk about that. It's simply not healthy.
Perhaps you're right. What about Sally and her newfound hunger for living flesh?
I imagine it must be quite terrifying for her, to have an impulse to eat living creatures that is as natural as an impulse to eat anything else. Worse in fact because it's a compulsion. Last week she merely felt it. But this week she's seen not one but two of her friends succumb to that hunger.
Thought's not the only issue she has to deal with. When she saw Nick and Stevie go through their doors, apparently they went through the same door, which shouldn't be possible. Now she knows there's larger game afoot, as you put it.
Well, she should have suspected the witch who brought her back had bad intentions when she asked for control of Sally's soul.
True, but there was no way to know she'd start targeting Sally's friends. And it's not like they could just go on a witch hunt, so to speak.
It's their only choice now. They dealt with Liam, though not permanently, and they have dealt with other threats to themselves and their friends. Now they need to track down this woman and destroy her. My guess is they'll spend most of the next season doing just that. Then, Sally will die and return to being a ghost, just as Josh has returned to being a werewolf.
Well, there are only 3 episodes left in a season, so we'll know better in the next month. What did you think of Lost Girl and Bo's dawning?
The dawning was a bit less impressive than I thought it would be. For all the effort she needed to go through even to start the dawning, the ceremony itself was rather perfunctory for lack of a better word. And it seemed to have no other purpose than to force her to make a selfish choice. Either save herself and leave Dyson to die, or stay trapped forever. Of course, being Bo, she took a third option and saved both their lives.
It was a trippy little alternate reality world, you must admit. Seeing the choices she might have made, especially metaphorized as a police officer who just won't follow the rules. You could say the dawning was there to help her be who she's always been. After all, hasn't her struggle to follow her own path always defined her anyway?
Absolutely, if that was the whole point then I agree. But it still lacked a certain spectacularness about it.
I suppose we can call that a matter of opinion. What did you think about her bringing Dyson back to life after he sacrificed himself for her?
Well, first let me say that I felt he forced himself into that situation. He said it was for selfless reasons, but he came off as simply overbearing. It was Beau's dawning after all, not his. Second, if there's one thing I have learned from all my years of time travel, it's that bringing people back from the dead always has consequences. And for a woman who wants to resist becoming dark to flout the rules of life and death like she did, she'll be very fortunate indeed to avoid going dark without even noticing it.
You bring up a good point. At the very least, everyone who saw what Beau did will have to see her in a new light from now on. No matter how much faith I had in someone, I'd still be a little intimidated if I saw them reverse death right in front of me. Thank you for joining me, Miss John-Smythe.
It's a pleasure, darling.
And thank you all for watching last night.